Good hilarity and opinion. Good hilarity and opinion with Jamie, Simon and Hutch. The Newcastle Comparison, live weekly on NUFC Talk Radio, on YouTube and in all your listening platforms. NUFC Talk Radio, the voice of the Toon Army.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Newcastle Comparison Sunday night special with me, Jamie Smith, and with my friend there, the miserable Mark, David Hutchinson. You all right, Hutch?
I'm okay, yeah. You?
Yeah, it's I was thinking it's a bit unusual, this one, because off the back of the international break, we've got a little bit of a little bit less to talk about because it's unusual for us to just have one match to talk about given the season that we've got ahead. In fact, from now on, it'll be 2 games pretty much every week from now to Kingdom Come, won't it? So this week, though, we've just had this weekend's game, a magnificent 2-1 win against Manchester City, setting a few wrongs right after a bad few weeks. We were both there yesterday. So
Yes, we were.
what's your quick take on that game, Hutch?
Well, very quick take was that it was a great game. Obviously, fantastic to come away with a win. Settled some scores as well in terms of some decisions that possibly could have gone against us, but went for us for once. And yeah, it's been a decent weekend of football, and I'm pretty pleased.
It has been decent. I think you're getting it. A few things that happened elsewhere there as well, aren't you?
I might be.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll have a little look back at what happened in that match then. So I think going into it, I was determined not to put too much stock in it, if that makes sense. Not to worry too much about how the game would affect us in terms of if we won, which we did. Spoiler alert, if anyone's first finding out about that from this podcast or this YouTube. But if we won, I didn't want it to be too much whereby we thought it was transformative. If we lost, you've got to think it's Manchester City, haven't you? And that is a very, very tough opponent, and that's a very difficult game to be sort of taking too much of a hit on.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you know, I'm often negative about these things, and going in within the league context anyway, Eddie Howe never having beaten Manchester City while managing Newcastle United. Well, we've come close a couple of times. Obviously, the 3-3 was a pretty great game, but I mean, just our recent form as well. You just didn't really expect much, and then when the team came out, you looked at the first team. The midfield hadn't changed, but obviously having Hall and Livramento there was hopefully going to be massive, and it proved to be massive. Lewis Hall, arguably, possibly the best player on the pitch, but even if you turned around and said, well, either Bruno or Chow, it was very much Hall and Livramento that kind of gave them that space and impetus to play in the way that they did, which only enabled the others to play better, if you will. Bruno dropped back to a number 6. So Tonali playing in the number 8, allowing his ball carrying to create space for other people. And yeah, we just played well, and from the kickoff, we just seemed to be on it. Obviously, Harvey Barnes getting a shot away after, was it Joe Linton or was it Bruno who took the ball from whichever City player it was,
I think it was Joe Linton, I think, wasn't it? That was pretty crazy that early on. So if anyone hasn't seen, it was maybe 20 seconds into the game, Donnarumma tried to play out from the back, and Joe Linton dispossessed him, found Murphy, and Murphy put it straight. Oh, sorry, it was Murphy, wasn't it? But it came to Barnes, and he just sort of snapshotted, didn't he? And made it pretty easy for Donnarumma. Is that fair to say?
Maybe, but then Donnarumma is class. I mean, compared to the last time he was at St James's Park, he seemed to be on it, especially in that first half. Voldemada had a header, and I don't think that was as easy as it looked, and Donnarumma made it look easy.
Yeah. It's easier when you're massive, like what he is.
Is it 6'6" he is?
I don't have those statistics to hand, David. No.
But yeah, that first half, I mean, we seemed to be playing well, but it didn't seem to be going our way. Barnes' miss as well was just tight. But then it didn't seem to be going well for them either, because it broke for Haaland once, pretty much his only shot of the game, and he completely.
Whoa! Hang on. I'm going to stop you there. Was Haaland playing?
He was playing.
I think
there was a moment in the game, right, in the first half. There was a moment in that first half, right, where he picks up the ball. I mean, you were there, you saw it, and literally everyone in the stadium and probably watching at home was absolutely shocked to find Nick Pope stood right in front of him, about 20 yards away from his own box, and the entire stadium, including Haaland, panicked. And he fluffed his lines massively.
Yeah.
And kicked it straight out of play.
Pope did rather well there, didn't he? That shot did well to make it out of play. First of all, before we go on, good evening to everybody out there joining in the chat. Hit the like and subscribe button there here on NUFC Talk TV or radio, and subscribe to us. We're available as a podcast out there in podcast land if that's how you're listening. So give us a subscribe for later on in the season, when looking back we'll always throw a bit of light on things. We'll be looking back a little bit at Manchester City later on, but any comments on the game, drop them in there and we'll maybe look at some of them. Size of the Seagull says Murphy's being overlooked, also the balls he put in should have had a few assists. Be interesting to see what happens when Wiss has back, because Murphy is flinging in some hellish balls from the right hand side. I thought he was excellent yesterday. I thought they were all really good. It's difficult to pick somebody out. Well, I suppose you pick Barnes out for the goals, don't you? But I think
well, we've already mentioned
got that right wing.
Yeah, we've already mentioned Murphy's contribution in terms of like flinging that ball towards Barnes at the left corner, where Barnes knocked it round the corner. I mean, he was involved in that second goal, certainly. Was he involved in the first goal as well? Like, he put the ball back in, Voldemada knocks it across, Bruno off the crossbar.
Yeah.
And then
I think the first goal was pretty much, it was
came
like
through the middle, didn't it?
Yeah. Bruno Barnes, wasn't it? Yeah. They won the ball back. But yeah, certainly another great game from Jacob Murphy, and I think you nailed it before, Hutch, and this is very much what we've been seeing for a few weeks, that the return of those two fullbacks, it sounds like something that would be barely relevant to a team that, in terms of an attacking sense, but Hall and Livramento made such a difference. Those overlapping runs, Hall in particular, I thought was outstanding. The way he just looks after the ball, we can find space, and when there doesn't seem to be any there, and he provided a really good foil for Barnes, I thought, and the shape they gave the team was a big difference maker.
Well, yeah, I mean, the overlapping runs, the fullbacks didn't know whether to track Murphy and Barnes or whether to track Hall and Livramento, and it created space. I mean, there was a great snapshot from Voldemada that Murphy put in, and it was made simply because Livramento overlapped and created that space for Murphy to get that ball straight in. But yeah, I mean, that's how we create via the wings, and those overlapping runs allow the creation of the goals from the outside. I mean, it's why Isak was so successful last season, and hopefully, provided that those guys stay fit. I mean, Hall seemed to go off yesterday, but it looked to be more cramped than anything else. At least we hope it is.
Yeah, he's a bit of a thing for getting cramp, hasn't he? He always seems to have pulled up with regular cramps, even when he hasn't been come back from injury. So I don't know if that's just like a bit of a weakness in him, but I haven't seen anything that suggests there's anything to worry about with that injury. I don't know if you've read up on it.
I haven't seen anything. From what I have read, nothing's come up. It does just seem to have been. Well, when he was taking his applause, he certainly wasn't hobbling. He just looked a bit jaded.
The way he stood up, it looked like, because they had Botman ready to come on, the way he stood up, it looked like he was just going to jog back onto the pitch, didn't he? So I think they just made a decision to think he's coming back from injury. He's a very important player. Let's just go through with a substitution. And I think it was cramp, but, it's so well proved, so important that you just start thinking, I hope it's nothing serious. And I think it's an interesting one because with us playing midweek, everyone's going to be looking at that position, aren't they? And does he play Hall again, or does he bring Dan Burn back? And
it's whether you think you need him. I mean, Europe so far has provided a bit of a respite so far. Like the games haven't been as difficult as what you kind of like expected them to be. But then Marseille away, you kind of think that that's going to be a bit more a bit more of a challenge. But at the same time, then do you really want to put someone that you're kind of going to be reliant on in that position just for him to get effectively, snapped by some nasty little Raj on the right hand side, who we all know exactly who that's going to be?
I don't know who plays on the right for Marseille, sorry.
It's Mason Greenwood, mate.
Is it? Oh.
It is.
Well, but am I arse?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, yeah. Well, I think, well, that's kind of the question, isn't it? Do you play him when there's a potential risk there? If you don't, is that Dan Burn back in? And if he's up against Greenwood, who's sort of got a bit of pace about him, hasn't he, then that's maybe exploiting Dan Burn's weaknesses. So, yeah, overall, both of those are tremendous. Haaland, Livramento. I think we've still got that extra element if Wissa to come back to see if the team sort of gets even better and gets even more shape. But, big question. I said we don't want to overreact to whatever the result is. It was a great win. Do you think that's turning a corner, Hutch? Best performance of the season?
It was probably, in the Premier League, certainly it was the best performance of the season. You don't know, do you? Because, I mean, even though we lost those games to Liverpool and Arsenal, we didn't play badly in them. It was just that we kind of like pushed on to try and get the result and ended up getting caught. I don't know. I mean, there is a comment there that the big acid test is Everton, and I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
If we can start picking up points away from home, I think then you can safely say that the corner's been turned. But up until that starts to happen, then I don't know. But the signs were promising. Like the change around in midfield seemed to work pretty well as well. I mean, it's Manchester City, like in that first half, I was whinging a bit that they were doing that thing where they kind of basically were just passing it straight along the ground and basically bypassing our entire midfield. But then in the second half, they did just kind of like squeeze that a little bit. We played well, and I was pleasantly surprised with how well we played.
Mighty Wins in the comments here telling you to overreact, Hutch. And just saying everything and wait. And he's right. A lot of the time, who was it said? Sometimes you don't enjoy the moments if you're thinking about the next one.
Exactly.
I
mean, I would be overreacting if I'd managed to get a ticket to Everton, but I didn't. So I'm not bitter.
Whinge. I mean, you could have tried harder. You could have phoned the club up and berated them every day on end, and so if they give you one to get rid of you.
Exactly.
Right.
Should we look at the controversial moments or the uncontroversial moments? Because Pep Guardiola seemed to be very upset. Pep Guardiola seemed to be very upset and seemed to believe that our goal was offside. Our second goal was offside. Anyway, I mean, I've seen some pictures. I've seen some pictures kicking around from Man City fans where they're purposefully drawing dodgy lines without showing where the ball is at any one particular time. And then when you see the one with the ball on Voldemara's head, he's perfectly in line. So I'm just going to completely dismiss that one as him being annoyed about nothing. So
I think I'm disappointed in Guardiola because I've always thought he wasn't as bad like that. I've had so many years of Klopp whinging on every time a game goes against him. We've got Arteta the last few years, some of the things he said. And, it's bad enough, like, having tough games against those teams without him pissing and moaning on afterwards. And I didn't have Guardiola down as particularly being like that. Sometimes he's quite humble, isn't he? But, yeah, there was a bit of a theme because you had it, like, I think I said about towards the end of the first half, do they just ask for a penalty every time it goes in the opposition box? Because you had the Chow handball, which was never a penalty.
No, it was too close, far too close, and his arm is tucked right
in. Shear's tackle on Foden.
I think right.
Given, but...
I'm just gonna tell it as it is. That should have been a penalty. However, going back to our book of grudges, it reminded me very much of Edison on Fraser back in December 2021, and that wasn't given. So he's completely wiped. Like when Fraser got completely wiped out by Edison. I mean, yeah, and the argument was that the ball was gone away from him, and it was in the possession of Man City. Well, Foden had booted it out of play. Shaw's momentum should have probably been a penalty, but wasn't. So get over it. Scratch that one out of the book.
Yeah,
I'm happy with that.
All right. It was maybe slightly lucky, but it wasn't an absolute stonewall penalty. I think, like you say, ball had gone. Foden had already missed, not because he was fouled. I think I said about halfway through the game, I think we've got England's Phil Foden here. We've got, him turning out the rather useless performances he does for the national team as opposed to the ones that tend to do us in when he plays for Man City. But overall, he was fairly anonymous. Haaland was fairly anonymous. And I thought a bit of credit to the midfield as well for shutting up their midfield. And you're right, it ended up with Man City just moaning about gripes that they didn't really... Well, people are saying that maybe they had a right over that Shea one, but I agree with you totally. Even if the second goal was a touch offside, it's one of those stupid offsides that you see get given where, there's millimetres in it, and in old money, that'd never be offside.
It took ages, like absolutely ridiculous length of time to decide whether he was offside. Yeah. And the goal, like you say, it's one of those where there has to be some clear daylight that he is offside. And the ref gave it on the pitch, so I don't really like if they're arguing literally about millimeters. It's just pathetic.
Yeah, like you feel aggrieved when that doesn't get given, don't you? As a goal, not when you don't expect the VAR to turn it round for you.
Exactly.
And I think that whole thing needs up. That I think you need it so there's got to be clear daylight between them for an offside, because these fine margins are just ruining it. And like you see, it took them about 3 or 4 minutes to give it, where they've obviously looked at it from every angle. And I'm assuming it's a normal thing to do that we do, where if you as you come towards the end of a game, as you know, you see the clock ticking towards 90 minutes, I'm assuming everyone does what we do and tries to guess how many minutes of injury time it'll be. And we were seeing like 5 or 6 minutes, and he put 8 minutes up. And I was thinking that this will be ironic if the extra time they've got for whinging about that goal is when they get the equaliser.
So Jamie's just cut out there, but he was talking about Manchester City possibly whinging about the equaliser, and then at the time, oh, he's back, way! Cut off in mid-stride there, Jamie.
Keep on without me. Can you hear me?
We can hear
you. So yeah, I was saying, I don't know what point I cut. Basically, when we got those last few minutes at the end, you were fearing that would be when the equaliser came, when they've whinged for those minutes, basically for the VAR check. But what I was going to say to you was, for those last injury time moments and just before that last few minutes of the game, do you think the game management was better than it's been in recent weeks? Did you feel comfortable at 2-1?
Well, going back to a back three seemed to work really well. Like having the wing backs there with Murphy and Livramento. I thought it was better with Voltemade there. I mean, there was that moment when he basically took the ball, laid it off to Tonali. Tonali basically ran into the box, was impeded. We should have had a free kick. The referee just waved it away. I'll get back to the referee in a minute. But yeah, we seem to basically like contract really well and just hold them off. The only time that they really looked threatening was when they basically got their like wingers in play and were just basically launching balls into the box. But you know, at that point, Chow and Botman were just relentless at just getting that ball away. So, and to be fair to him, Elanga did well when he came on, when he was pressing.
I thought that.
And yeah, we just saw it out. But all right, so going back to the referee, he was giving nothing, was he? Like literally,
he was giving the decisions, but like there was an argument that there could have been quite a lot of yellow cards, and I said I'd always rather it that the ref lets a game flow, especially when you've got Joe Linton on your team, picking people up and throwing them about the place and dropping clotheslines and things like that, which I think Man City took a bit of exception to, the big soft shites. But yeah, there was maybe a bit of a danger of it boiling over a couple of times. They're blaming him for getting beat.
Well, there was that moment where he literally just shoved one of their defenders over, wasn't there?
Good foul.
It was a fantastic foul.
It was stopping a counter-attack, wasn't it?
It was. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a great win for us. It didn't move us up in the league, but it created a bit of distance, which is a bit mental. It created a bit of distance from us and the teams around us. And yeah, we'll see how it goes next weekend, and if we can actually start pulling some wins together, then you know it's all contracted at the top, other than Arsenal, who seem to be running away with it.
That was frustrating when you come out the game and stuff, and you see what else has happened, and you carry on with your day, and then it comes to a certain point where either you're watching Sky Sports News or you decide to get whatever app out and have a look at the table. And I had a look, and it was still 14th.
Yeah.
I thought, how are you? Hang on, man. Surely a win moves you. He has a little tidbit for you, though, Hutch. I think we will still move up a place if Everton get beat off Man United, which is Monday night kickoff. because they're only 1 goal ahead of us. And that would be a double win, because you'd think if Man United can, scuff them up a little bit, that'll be helpful for us going to the Dick next weekend, the Hill Dickinson Stadium, where I will be making my debut, because I am a virgin when it comes to the Dick, as are most people, because it's brand new ground. So, it was disappointing there, but I suppose that just adds onus to what you said, wasn't it? That we've got to continue sorting out the away form. And then we can start going up the table, because a win could put us right back into contention. And then there's 2 home games to come after that.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting week. Looking to see what kind of changes that he's going to make on Tuesday, or whether he can't stay with the same team and formation. Well, he could stay with the same formation, but he can't stay with the same team. If the goal now is to kind of like climb up the table as well. So do you want to look ahead to Marseille?
Do you mean for Marseille or for Everton?
Marseille.
Do you think? So you think play a different team in France and look at maybe retaining this 11 that's done so well this weekend against Everton? I've got a couple of comparisons actually before we get on to Marseille.
Go on then.
So we are the Newcastle comparison. We do look back a little bit. I've got one here for you, Hutch, right? 22 years ago, in 2003, on this week, Newcastle beat Man City 3-0. 2 goals from Alan Shearer, 1 from Shola Amiobi. And I remember that day distinctly. That was a pretty brilliant weekend, because that morning, England had won the Rugby World Cup in Australia with a very early kick-off. And the crowd was a bit buzzing off that. Our first big trophy win for our country, that I think since '66. And then we beat Man City. Johnny Wilkinson, Newcastle player, scored the winning goal in that Rugby World Cup final. And it was a time when Man City were very beatable, where we could get past them, and it probably wasn't such a shock result. Some people might be thinking beating Man City 3-0 sounds incredible. And then we did that sort of thing around there. In 2005, 2 years later, we beat them 1-0 with a Michael Owen goal. And in the 20 years since, here's one for you. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a starting point in this question. So we have played Man City 21 times in those 20 years. How many of those games do you think Newcastle have won at home at St James's Park?
2.
All competitions.
All competitions. 3.
So, yeah, you're spot on actually. So we've won 3. Man City have won 13, and there's been 5 draws. And that's without getting into it, because obviously this is looking back, and we played them at home. That's without getting into our horrible
shocking
record.
It's absolutely appalling.
And I think because what's happened with Man City is they were a middling, a bad Premier League team 20 plus years ago, and we still couldn't beat them. And we still used to get bad results against them home and away. And then they got all this money and became amazing, and they were beating everybody. But they've saved some right beatings for us, like when Aguero scored 5, or that time a couple of years ago when we went down there expecting to do quite well under Eddie Howe, and they stuffed us 5-0. And it's so... However, you can flip it on its head and say, out of the last 5 games in all competitions at St James, 2 wins, 2 draws. We beat them in the League Cup a couple of years ago. We won there. Had that magnificent 3-3, and the 1-0 where Gordon scored. So maybe getting rid of that kind of that monkey on the back. But it's been a very difficult opponent. I'm glad they're out of the way. Do you want to hear about what else happened on this day, Hutch?
Go on then. You may as well. Did we play Man City at some other point?
Did we play Man City at some other point in history ever? Probably, yeah. But not at this point. Well, not that I've pegged anyway. 5 years ago, right? So we lost 2-0 at home to Chelsea behind closed doors with Steve Bruce as manager, and I just cannot remember anything about that game. You know, and but it's an interesting comparison because, like, you wouldn't remember that game because going back then you just expected to lose every match to those sort of teams. And it's quite nice, isn't it, to think like when they come now, you expect to at least give them a game as opposed to like just writing it off or thinking there's a bit of a Hail Mary that you might beat these teams. But yeah, another forgettable defeat to a better team. 10 years ago, a 3-0 defeat at home to Leicester. Do you remember what this game, what happened in this game that was remarkable?
I'm afraid I don't know. Go on and tell me.
Jamie Vardy broke the record for the longest scoring streak in Premier League games. I think it was something like his 10th game consistently scoring. He actually got clapped by the crowd when he scored against Newcastle, which stunk. And that's when Leicester were en route to winning the Premier League title. And we were en route to the Championship. Which sounds like you're talking about stuff from a different era now. But it was nearly a decade ago. And it was that I think played a big part in getting the PSR rules enforced to make sure that nobody could ever do what Leicester did again and win the Premier League against all odds. So, you see I'm getting this relevant because, Hutch, do you want to, in 30 seconds, explain how the changes to the PSR rules are going to affect starting from next season? Well, so we've gone from PSR to SCR, squad cost ratio. Go, Hutch.
Well, so squad cost ratio is basically where the money that you make, 85% of it is allowed to be spent on the playing squad and the manager. Apparently, the first team coaches are an exception to the rule, and all other staff or outgoings are also an exception to the rule. So it was voted for, was it on Friday or Thursday or Friday? So basically, in PSR, you've got that arbitrary 135, was it 135 million or 130 million over the 3-year period?
It's 105 million.
105 million. That's even worse. Mm-hmm. So basically, you were kind of like cut off by that rule. You're only allowed to spend that rule on playing squads and loads of other little tidbits. But this is very much just on your squad and on wages. So apparently, according to The Athletic, there were 6 teams who voted against it. If there were 7, it would not have gone through. Those teams were Bournemouth, Brentford.
Hang on. Oh, I was going to have a guess. Right, but okay, I reckon I can go from there. So you give us it. So Bournemouth and Brentford.
Yep.
Right, so I'm thinking, is this teams that have got a fear of relegation? So is Wolves one?
No.
Or Leeds?
Leeds is one.
Burnley?
No.
All right, just tell us. There's obviously no rhyme or reason to this. There's no
See,
pattern.
I think there is a pattern. It's basically teams that don't like spending money. So Bournemouth, Brentford, Brighton and Hove Albion, Crystal Palace, Fulham and Leeds all voted against it. Now, the pattern there...
So, hang on. Wait. The common theme is it's people who don't like spending money. Is Christopher Rodriguez on that list?
However.
Sorry, carry on.
There was another part of this vote, which was the anchoring. So anchoring would be where you're only allowed to spend 5 times as much as the lowest team earns. 7 teams In fact, 12 teams voted against it. The 7 teams who voted for it were Burnley, Sunderland, Everton, Villa, Arsenal, and Liverpool.
Wow. That's a didactic mix of teams, isn't it? You're going from your big old title contenders down to newly promoted types.
So,
but it didn't happen, did it? So
it didn't happen. But like, if you look at Arsenal, like you look at the amount of money that Arsenal and Liverpool have spent this summer, and you kind of wonder, well, why would they want to basically limit the amount of money that you can spend, subject to the crappiest, well, not the crappiest, but the financially weakest team in the league. And
well,
it's
because it's still a big old amount you can spend, isn't it? And maybe they're thinking get like a cap on it versus what teams that might be owned by sovereign wealth funds can spend. Because theoretically, if all better off, there's certain clubs, not mentioning any names, but it's written all over this screen, could just build a super team. It's kind of a hark back to that whole Man City conversation, because they went from the team we were beating 3-0 in 2003 that we were just talking about to being a bit of a super team with tons of signings across 2 or 3 windows. And that's what you're thinking is what everyone's thinking, every time there's one of these votes or one of these instances where Man City or somebody takes the Premier League to court, you're hoping that the rules change in a way that it allows Newcastle to do that, and we can just buy who we want and give what we like in wages in the next transfer window. Do we think, Hutch, it's a very, very simple question. Do you think we'll be better off for this? Will we be able to spend more money next summer?
I think that's going to be,
or not.
Well, looking at the squad cost ratio currently, we are slightly above the 70% for the UEFA coefficient. But it's primarily gonna basically be on the club themselves and how much commercial income can grow over the next year to see whether or not we can basically spend money. Now, you look at Liverpool and you look at Arsenal, and they're going to be really concerned, pretty much, that they're going to be limited to 70%, because you've got to fancy that they're always going to be in some form of European competition, which limits their kind of spending ability to that 70% rather than the 85%. So,
well, I don't know. Liverpool look like they're more likely to be in the Championship the way they're going than some sort of European competition.
They're still 3 points ahead of us, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
That's true.
You
have to bring everything down, don't you?
To be fair,
let people enjoy Liverpool falling apart, man.
To be fair, I did enjoy watching Match of the Day, and I thought, maybe like fast forward through that first game so I can watch Newcastle, but then I thought, nah, let's watch Liverpool get beat.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, let's have a little segue into that, because I bet you a lot of people are enjoying that. There was a headline, a couple of things on our old mate Alexander Isak. First, did you see this stat? First person in Liverpool's Premier League history to lose all 4 of his first starts.
Yep.
Wow. Withdrawn, I think, on about 60, 70 minutes, and the BBC correspondent at the game said he's literally done nothing, and that's not an exaggeration. Replaced by Chiesa, and rumours flying everywhere that maybe he's still injured or just that it's not working. But I mean, obviously, we still haven't seen Wissa, so it's not like we're winning massively out of the deal. But it's hard not to take a bit of schadenfreude from all that, isn't it, from seeing that crash spectacularly. Here's a quick question for you. How many goals do you reckon Isak's getting for them this season in the Premier League?
I mean,
Come on, I'll hold you to this. I'm going to write it down somewhere.
It's going to be less than 10, isn't it? It's going to be considerably less than 10. 7?
Less than 10 or considerably less than 10.
I'm gonna say 7. He might get a run where he gets a few, but yeah. Just
7 or maybe one less, like 6, 7.
No. No.
But do you think it'll work in the long run? Because I think we need to be careful here. It's a little bit like earlier this season, like, you know, Sunderland bigging up that they are going to do very well. They're going to finish in the Champions League places and stuff like that. And you're like, wait for the season to settle down, lads. And maybe it's a little bit like that. I think sometimes with Isak, that the player that was so good for us for 3 years is still in there, and at some point it'll come good for him in Liverpool. I'd love it if it didn't, don't get us wrong. And he ended up on loan at Fenerbahce this time next year or something. But I think it'll work in the long run. Do you, Hutch?
I don't know, you know, because fundamentally we built a team around Isak to basically allow Isak to go and do the thing that he needed to do to get us wins. And it's just not there at Liverpool. Like, I don't watch them, and I don't watch any Premier League football that on a weekend where Newcastle don't win. So I haven't been watching a lot of football this season. So it's difficult to know. But like from what I saw in Match of the Day yesterday, it was very much they kind of still get the ball to Salah expecting that he's going to do something. Or they'll work it through the midfield with like lots of like little triangles, and he's just not that type of player. He's very much the player of give me the ball and I will shoot, and 2 out of 3 of my shots will 1 be on target and 2 challenge the goalkeeper, which was why the Murphy-Isak combination works so well, because Isak could literally put it on a dime. Murphy could literally put it on a dime for Isak. And there is no one in that Liverpool squad who is either seems capable of doing that, nor wants to do that. So it's like he needs to adapt his game to suit them, rather than them basically changing to suit him. Or Slot needs to basically rebuild that team around him. And that's where the problems come from.
If Slot gets a chance.
Well, exactly.
There's already talk of them replacing Slot, isn't there?
Happy clappers like us will say how in, but a lot of the Liverpool fans are now turning around and saying Slot out. So be careful what you wish for, boys.
And I mean, it would be utterly magnificent if Alexander Isak never hits double figures in his entire Liverpool career. I think that's the thing as well. I hate feeling a bit bitter about it because of the way it worked out across the summer. But it's a fact, isn't it? I think if you went out there and like polled Newcastle fans in the ground on this chat, whatever, everybody would say they don't want Alexander Isak to do well. They'd love it. Any bad things that happen through his career, injuries, whatever, getting loaned out and things like that. I think everyone would be really keen for his career to crash and burn, as opposed to holding something back a little bit, thinking, well, he was a great player for us and he won the League Cup for us and things. But yeah, he's doing terrible, and it's brilliant, isn't it?
Well, it's not just brilliant because like he's doing terrible. Like, let's face it, there's no one who's black and white associated who feels any particular love for Liverpool right now. So the fact that they basically spent the entire summer like treating us like crap for it to all blow up in their faces is brilliant. And I can see in the comments there, the effing size of these seagulls have said, mate, we're stuck with Elanga now. Yeah, we are stuck with Elanga because we bought Elanga to play with Isak. And then his mate ditched him to go to Liverpool. So I still think that Elanga could come good, especially playing once Wissa becomes fit, because I mean, Elanga's whole game is putting the ball into the box for someone. I mean, Murphy's better at it, to be fair, but Elanga's 2-footed, so he could play off the left. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm enjoying their downfall, their self-inflicted downfall.
Elanga's another one that maybe you need to judge with Wissa in the team, don't you? Or a more prominent striker, a more out-and-out number 9 than Voldemort is. And as you said, I think Elanga did quite a good job of sort of leading the line in that rearguard action yesterday. He came on for Voldemort, didn't he? And he stood quite high up, and whenever City attacked and we got the ball off them, he led counter-attacks and kept possession deep in their end and nearly created a couple of opportunities. So I think it was a decent little cameo from Elanga, but he's the sort of person you'd imagine he'll get a game at Marseille on Tuesday night.
So, I mean, he certainly needs to improve, don't get us wrong. And we need to work on a way to basically fit him in now that Isak's left. But hopefully Whistle will provide that. But we'll see, you know. We don't know until it happens.
Well, yeah. But hopefully it won't be too long. Like, I think I was pretty much expecting him to be on the bench on the weekend, and he wasn't. But I'd hope he'll be there at Everton, maybe. I don't think it changed too much for Marseille, but maybe come next week we might start seeing the transition of Wissa back into the team. But let's move on to Marseille, Hutch. So there's a few stories here. First off, in terms of opposition, I think this could be our toughest game of the group stage.
Yep.
And people might think that's an exaggeration. We've got Barcelona, but certainly you'd expect to be competitive in all games at St. James. In terms of away matches, we've already beaten USG. Bayer Leverkusen, I think, are feeding. There's definitely feeding from the team that won the Bundesliga a couple of years ago, without Alonso, without Wirtz, etc. And then when we play Paris, that is obviously on paper a very, very difficult game against the European champions. But because it's the last game of the group, it may be that they don't have as much to play for, and it's a little bit more doable, a bit more approachable. Whereas Marseille, tough old place to go, and I know because I've been there. That is picture there is me outside the Marseille supporters bar in 2004 when I was just a young pup. When we played them in the Europa League. So, well, it was the UEFA Cup then. UEFA Cup semi-final second leg. And I was there with a few mates. It's not a place I'm falling over myself to return to, I have to admit that. But it was a bit of an unusual one because back then, it was one of those where, right, Newcastle were playing PSV in the quarter-final with the second leg at home. And we were well positioned. We'd drawn the away leg. And I'm sure Marseille were playing Inter Milan. And me and my mates there were planning to go to Milan because Milan were really well placed to go through. But then Marseille beat them against the odds. And we were like, right, well, we'll go to Marseille instead. And I thought, south of France, that sounds brilliant. You know, it's one of my favourite places in the world. But shall we say, it's quite a rustic place, is Marseille. It's one of those places. It's pretty much, it's a big old port, and there's a lot of people coming into France through that port. There's a lot of sort of petty crime. I'm just kind of tripping over my words here because I'm conscious somebody might be listening who's about to go there, who's getting really excited, and I'm saying things like this.
Well, to be fair, mate, I don't think you need to, because the club sent out a key information pack regarding their trip to Marseille, which included things like don't wear colours, do not visit the Old Port, and you are only allowed to travel to the games on an organised metro that will depart at 16:30 for a game which I believe is it at 7:30 or 8:00? So
it's very easy, I think, to lose track of when games are in. Kick-off times go all over the place, but I saw that what you're referring to, the disruptions that the club gave out, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is a bit heavy-handed, it's a bit over the top." But from my experience being there, it's not. It is a place where you do have to kind of watch your back a little bit. That Old Port was actually really nice during the day. It's going back a couple of decades, I realise that, but it was all right during the day. And just the way I put it was, it seemed like when nightfall came, the place turned into the Mos Eisley spaceport from Star Wars, and everyone come out to try and, take advantage. And the metro ride to the ground, I remember being a bit of a chore. My mate had his pocket picked on the metro, and then they create a hell of an atmosphere in the ground. Just beating Man City, going great guns in the Champions League. Do you think we go to Marseille and get something, David?
I don't know. A draw, I think, maybe. I don't know whether we'll beat them. Yeah, I'm going to say a draw.
Probably do. And there's a couple of comments in the Size of the Seagull says that they are savage, their fans. It's like PSG tenfold. That's spot on, because we were having a conversation about where to go when we were wanting to choose a Champions League trip, weren't we, Hutch? And I suggested Paris, and you said, "Oh, that would be a bit dodgy. Let's go to Marseille." And I said, "Hang on, what? That is through the looking glass stuff, mate." So, needless to say, we had a conversation about it. We both put our points of view across, and we all concluded that I was right all along.
We
the words of Brian Clough,
we did. I mean,
so we're off to Paris.
I mean, they're on a bit of a roll at the present moment in time. They lost in the last Champions League game against Atalanta, but since have beaten Brest,
right,
and Nice. So they
Nice Brest. Oh, well, I see, that's the thing. I don't know if Brest and Nice are any good, or if that's just like, if
I mean,
they
beat them convincingly, to be fair, like 3-0 and 5-1, irrespective. But then, as I've said, they lost against Atalanta. So difficult to say, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
Does Aubameyang play for them? Adrian Pickett saying Dan Burn versus Aubameyang. I have not been paying attention to Marseille, have I?
All I know is that Mason.
Now, though.
Who? Aubameyang? He must be like 33.
Dan Burn's probably quicker than him. But a couple of people again saying Drogba beat us single-handed, mighty win home and away. And I think that's going back to the 2004 game. I think that the problem with that was over 2 legs. We'll come this later in the season, because I'm sure we will get a knockout. Newcastle didn't do enough in the home leg. It was 0-0, and it left it open when we went out there, and Drogba scored twice later on in the game. And there's a couple of people have said, I think, when I've been speaking about my trip to Marseille, that it was made easier by Marseille winning and being in a bit of a party mood and stuff, whereas you don't know if they're going to be a little bit paid off if Newcastle go there and tear them apart. So, if anyone is listening who's going there, stay safe, really stick to those club rules. It's not nanny state stuff. It's just kind of being a bit sensible out there, and I'm sure there'll be crowds of Geordies that get together, as we tend to on these trips, and make sure they all enjoy it. And hopefully we'll come away with something. Because, again, getting into what it might mean, If you've probably heard somewhere on this channel, Mighty Win, telling everyone that we can win the Champions League. But the first step to that's got to be getting out of the group. If you come in the top 8, you go straight to the last 16, and we're currently in that position. If you come between 9th and 24th, you go into a playoff to get the last 16. And if we end up doing that, it's probably going to be a tie we've got a very good chance of winning. But that will then mean we have to play one of the top 8 in the last 16, and we have to go away to their ground in the second leg. So you can put yourself at a massive, massive advantage by coming in the top 8, because then you will have a slightly easier tie with home advantage in the second leg. You can put yourself in with a good chance of getting to the quarter-final. And to stay in line on course for that top 8, Hutch, do you think a point will do here on Tuesday night?
I think a point probably would do, to be fair. I don't think Leverkusen are anywhere near as good as what they used to be. And as a consequence, I think we should be able to beat them away from home. My only slight concern about these is that they're managed by Roberto De Zerbi, and he doesn't necessarily. He has a reasonable record. I mean, to be fair, it's 1-1-1 in terms of wins, losses, and draws. But their Brighton team at the time wasn't particularly good, and I still just have nightmares from that 1-1 draw where Brighton basically just threaded the ball through our entire midfield, from the goalkeeper to their attack, and to be fair, they should have won that game as well. So
1-1-1 is in what you mean as well. He was manager of Brighton. That was his record against Newcastle.
Yeah, 1 win, 1 draw,
and that 1-1,
1 loss.
That 1-1 draw, I think, was that like the last game of the season, last home game.
Yeah.
And we drew 1-1, and if we'd have won, we'd have got a European place.
That's the one.
Basically. So we owe him one, the way I look at it.
We do own one.
That'd
be
pretty good if we could go around. If we could go around slapping everyone who's annoyed us with Brighton in the past, that would be a pretty lengthy and successful campaign.
Well, to be fair, I mean, if we're taking that as a rule for the week, we've started with Pep. So Roberto De Zerbi, we owe Roberto De Zerbi one from our little grudge book. So yeah, why not?
Little grudge book. Wow. I think not. And so, well then, do we owe one then? I don't know about David Moyes, but we certainly owe one to Everton, don't we?
Oh, don't we just?
We just can't beat them these last couple of seasons. If you look at the games we've had then, so Hutch, do you remember the last few games against Everton? So, first of all, we've touched on the fact that I'll be there, and you fell short of the loyalty points, but you didn't last year, did you? Because we were there.
We were there at Goodison Park. I was there. My seat wasn't, because it had fallen off somewhere. But yeah, we were playing.
Don't use them.
No, we don't. To be fair, but yes, Anthony Gordon was leading the line. Anthony Gordon fluffed his chance to win when he kicked the penalty straight at Jordan Pickford.
Was it that bad? Was it? It's one of them, like you say, like having been at the game that day and that happened. It was 0-0 in the end. We didn't lose, but you certainly got no inclination to go back and watch the highlights of the game, have you, when things have gone against you? So I don't think I've ever watched that penalty back again. And if it comes on any TV that I'm passing, I'll just look away.
From what I recall, it was a terrible penalty. So I kind of suspect that it was straight at him. And let's face it, he's got really little arms. He can't reach that far, so it has to have been pretty close to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we at no point last season did they really threaten us in that game when we played away, but at no point did we massively threaten them. And it was one of those games where, had Isak been playing, we probably would have won it. I can't even remember why he was out. He must have been injured.
Did he break his toe?
Something like that.
Toe.
That or
Yeah.
the never-ending thigh problems that he seems to have.
It was a bit like, it was like one of the first few games of this season where Gordon was playing up front, and it was just a big old bundle of nothing, and you come away with a 0-0, and you think, well, a draw away from home, but it's actually been a bit dispiriting this game. But it was before the season really got going, wasn't it? It was sort of October time, but probably the one that really, really nearly screwed us was the home game, last game of the season. Newcastle just didn't turn up, did they? They just, when we really needed it, when it would have been one of the most memorable matches of all time, if clinched Champions League qualification to go with our trophy, and we did that. We came fifth, but for a start, we blew fourth spot at least, possibly third. I can't remember the mechanics. And for a second, we lost at home to Everton. And, that was the script the Mackems wanted, wasn't it? Pickford to deny us and everyone else to overtake us. And it turned out that we got in, but only because Man United bailed us out. So, it was strange, that game, wasn't it, Hutch?
It was, and it kind of brings us back to two games that we've actually discussed on this podcast. The Leicester game where we almost blew Champions League last time, and kind of like scraped over the butt, like basically just fumbled over the line with a draw that we needed to gain Champions League football. But also the Championship when we were against Brighton, where we needed that draw. We needed Aston Villa to do us a favour against Brighton, and they did. So Man United doing us a favour. I recall that there was some controversy in that game where Aston Villa believed that they were denied something. I can't remember what it was, but on a look, it was blatant that it was absolutely fine.
It was a goal Man United. No, yeah, it was a goal Villa scored where he kicked out the keeper's hand.
Yeah.
And it got given as a foul, and they were like, the keeper never had control of it.
But he did, because he had his hand on it, and it was against the floor, which means that he was in control of it.
Might win saying Gordon should never have took that penalty at Everton last year.
Yeah, that is absolutely bloody right. The ridiculousness, because you could tell as well that the Everton crowd were on him, and he just didn't look confident all game. Anyone else should have taken that penalty.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, obviously, with him playing, Isak and Wilson won't have been. So I don't know. Like Joe Linton takes a canny penalty, doesn't he? So I don't even remember if he was on the pitch, but yeah. And I get that if Gordon's a designated penalty taker, in theory it shouldn't matter who the opponent is, but sometimes you've got to manage the occasion, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I tell you what, though, if anyone's ever been to Goodison Park, it's a crumbling heap of a ground, and it's somewhere that I'll be glad that I'll not be going back to. Their record at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, the Dick, has been very good so far this season.
They have started losing there, though. They were
lost to Tottenham.
Aye. The Tottenham side who just got mauled by Arsenal, by the way. They got absolutely on. So,
I think they lost to Tottenham, and then what did they draw with Fulham? And so I think, you see, when teams come to these new grounds, sometimes because they're not used to the surroundings, because it's, you need a little bit of settling down there. they can get a little bit upset. You see teams sort of moving to a new stadium and they lose like 6 or 7 home games across that first season, and then everybody gets to grips with it a little bit. So I think there's potential here. There's, it's probably a pretty ideal spot to be looking at that away record and saying, right, enough is enough. Let's put it right. Let's not be going to the next away game, which is Sunderland, and saying, let's put that away record to bed now. And then even if we do beat them, people will start saying that we haven't won a game outside of our home county in the whole season. So, I don't know. Do you reckon, Hutch, can we do them? You backing us to do Everton?
I'm going to nail my close to the mast and say yes, we can. They've been a bit hit and missy this season. They seem to, they can't seem to string a consistent set of results together. So I do think that I think that if we play as well as we played against City, then we will beat them. It's just going to depend on how that translates on the pitch. And in an away fixture, whether or not without the crowd it gets a bit messy. But no, yeah, I think we can. We've got to win at least a couple of away games this season, so why not?
You'd hope the issue is the shape of the team. That I've said all along, the shape of the team has not been conducive to attack, and if Livermore and Hall are playing, that brings that back. I think Harvey Barnes has now got that left wing shirt, hasn't he? I mean, there's chat there, everyone's saying, we've got Gordon has his issues with Everton, the crowd will be on his back wherever the stadium is. Harvey Barnes has just put Man City to the sword. He's got to stay on that left-hand side, hasn't he? For the league game. And I mean, I think I probably agree with you. Do the tweaks against Marseille that will allow us to be competitive but still use the squad up, and then that team that's destroyed Man City, get them to destroy Everton as well.
Well, Gordon wasn't available for this weekend's game anyway. Now, it has been suggested that he's only a few days away, but I certainly wouldn't start him against Everton because, the mentality monster he is, he seems to shy away whenever he plays them. Barnes, especially when you're playing the wing backs, and your wingers have to basically contract into the middle more. He seems to be better in those positions where he's just behind the striker. And as we saw against Man City, he's capable of hitting those corners. I have been critical of Harvey Barnes. I didn't understand why we spent the money on a player who has declined, visibly declined. But if he is going to be starting to hit those goals again, then yeah, I think he has. He's certainly earned his chance. Bearing in mind that Gordon still hasn't contributed a goal or assist since January.
So, in summary, you're saying you're being incredibly fickle there about how you didn't used to like Harvey Barnes and thought he was overpriced, and now he scored some goals, you think he's brilliant, and you hate Anthony Gordon instead. And then if Gordon comes and scores against Marseille, are you going to get his name on the back of your shirt?
No, I think Anthony Gordon needs to do a bit more than just score a couple of goals because, to be fair, he's had his issues for quite some time now. It's fair to say for as much as Eddie Howe has improved the likes of Murphy and all those other players that we've mentioned, Joel Linton, and we can go on and on and on, it is Anthony Gordon who seems to have come in, started well, and then visibly declined to the point of he's just not the same player. So good show, lads. We are agreed. How out now? Low. Nice to see you there, Bogey. I hope you enjoyed the weekend.
So it's interesting, because I think obviously if you were how out going into the weekend, you've got to have thought, well, dear me, maybe there is time for a rethink. But I'll go back to my earlier point, which is that what I think pretty much the first thing I said, which is I wasn't about to let the Man City score be a big influence on my way of thinking. Man City was the 6th straight home game that we've won in all competitions. The home form's actually good. We've lost to Liverpool in the last minute with 10 men. We lost to Arsenal in the last minute, who's top of the league. We lost to Barcelona, who's Barcelona. Everyone else we've beaten. 8 wins.
Yeah.
Even when it has been convincing, we've been winning.
And there's been controversial moments in those games as well. You know, Gabriel should have been sent off. Like, everyone says that.
So all of them, you could make a case for those games, but the away games, it's probably the other way around, where the games where we have got something, where we have got points, have been dreadful. And I think that performance against Man City was so good that there's signs that, like, it's a shape, it's, you know, it's working a bit more. The international break's done them good, and you probably have a bit of hope going to Everton. But as we've been saying, that's going to be the big test, the next couple of away games.
But yes, I mean, going back to Bogey's point, it's going to take a lot more to convince some of these people who are Howe out that it has fundamentally changed. You know, like this needs to be the game where the rut stops and we start picking up wins. And if you are going to get everyone on side, you need to do this consistently, and it can't be a full storm. But you know, as miserable as I am still firmly in the Howe in camp, and I've had a thoroughly wonderful weekend. So thank you very much, Bogey, for the comment.
I was going to put you on the spot, actually, because something that we do occasionally is to get your cloudy lining. So whenever things have gone well, like you being the miserable old git that you are, just to see you normally organically, when we are talking about the game after a brilliant weekend, will come out with something outrageous that contradicts a good feeling all around. So have you got Hutch's cloudy lining for this week?
Yes.
Might you win seeing how in there? Thank you, sir.
My cloudy lining is that Lewis Hall went off with cramp in the 70 whatever minute, and we are one more Lewis Hall going off with something to having Dan Burn back at left back. So there you go, there's the cloudy lining. And as we've seen, it clearly doesn't work.
It doesn't. I mean,
and if you actually want me to expand on that as well, then the bench at the weekend, we had no fullback cover other than Murphy, who, to be fair, I had been wondering where he was, so he was actually in the squad.
Alex Murphy, you mean?
Alex Murphy. We also had.
Everyone would assume you mean Jacob Murphy, wouldn't know when you just say Murphy.
Well, to be fair, Jacob Murphy went to left wing back and wasn't terrible.
Yeah. He played his part, didn't he, in closing the game out? But that was with 3 at the back.
Yeah.
I would not like to see him deployed there on any other basis. Richo there saying these results have been crazy. Win one, lose one. Win one, lose one. We've drawn a couple as well, to give them their due. But that's it, isn't it? That's what we're seeing. It's got to be consistency.
Yeah.
There's no reason why and that's why I think Everton's so big, because it's followed by 2 home games, winnable home games, I'd say, against Spurs and Burnley. And then a massive, massive week where we go to Leverkusen in the Champions League, which could be pretty definitive as to where we end up. We've got that derby at Sunderland, and then we've got Fulham in the quarter-final of the League Cup. And I think if Everton can be a momentum gatherer to take in all of those games, you could see one of those runs. And I don't like the way that it's happened for us. That it feels like that's happened the last few years, where you go on a brilliant winning streak, and then you're terrible for a few weeks and have patchy results, and then you throw another winning streak together, and you just keep doing that. And like, we won the League Cup because every round of the League Cup came along when we were in a bit of a winning streak. And it's, you'd rather it was you can always forgive the odd bad performance, the odd isolated incident, or the other team's just better than you. But yeah, consistency's a bit of a thing. But by the same token, Rich was also saying rotation doesn't help with consistency, but that's it. It's got to be done. The amount of games we had, as we've said, we think on the assumption we get to the League Cup semi-finals, and if we then had to go through the playoff round of the Champions League, it would be at least the end of February before we have a week where we don't have 2 games, where we don't have weekend, midweek as the games. And then if we do progress in the FA Cup and in the Champions League, I think that could go on to the next international break, which is in March. So we need to use that squad, people.
Yeah. But likewise, I think coming up as well to the January transfer window, I do think they kind of need to look at the fullback situation and realise that we can't go on like this. Hall needs a backup, Livramento needs a backup, and they need to be backups that can basically do what they do. I mean, you're never going to get that form of quality, probably, but at the same time, you need to be able to have, players with the technical ability and the speed that they've got in order to.
How do you do that though? How do you say? So if you take Lewis Hall,
yeah,
if he's fit, he starts, right?
Yeah, but like you've got so many. You've got. I mean, assuming that we get further into much further into the Champions League competition, and assuming as well, it is a big assumption at the present moment in time and where we are, that we got some form of European football next year. There is enough games to justify having 2 players who are capable of playing in those positions. And
yeah, but how do you pitch that? Where do you get the player who will come knowing that Lewis Hall has got that shirt and knowing that he's going to be playing in the Europa League, say, on Thursday nights in Siberia and Bratislava and these countries that aren't even in Europe, they get in the competitions like Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan and don't get started on that one. And and then he gets 15 minutes here and there for Lewis Hall. So
because
it's going to be hard to do the alchemy, right, of getting someone who will accept those conditions, but then can be as good as Lewis Hall or a good deputy for him when he comes in. And I think it's
what you've got to say to that player is very much what you basically say to any player who's coming in, that you are competition for that player, and you will play in the important games if you can prove that you are worthy of playing in those important games. But to start doing that, you've got to play in the League Cup, you've got to play in these games in Bratislava and Kazakhstan and wherever it is, and actually prove your worth. And if it turns out that they are better suited for that role than Lewis Hall, then you need to turn around to Lewis Hall and say, you're going to have to play in this game, in that game, in order to prove that you are better than this. And, it only takes one injury, and let's face it, we have lots of injuries because when we do play with the intensity that we did play with against Manchester City, these players do tend to pull up eventually. I mean, Livramento himself has had lots of injuries. Joe Linton's had lots of injuries, which is why you got Ramsey in, who also has had lots of injuries. So
bit of a theme.
There is a theme, but it's if you play with intensity, you do tend to have lots of injuries.
I think that's a good point there from the mighty win, and that's maybe something we've got to have a bit of balance about, because you can replace one of them with Trips or one of them with Dan Burn, but not both at the same time. I would even say, like that's been just really unlucky that they're both injured at the same time. I would even say the days of the Dan Burn left back experiment are over, unless you get a game where tactically you say it would really, really, really work to have him at left back. They don't have pace on the right, and it drops to that sort of flat back 3 when they've got the ball, if you know what I mean, where like we used to, it was him, Botman and Shea.
Well, what you can't
been a bad
have,
thing, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, what you can't have is Dan Burn doing what Lewis Hall does, because he can't do what Lewis Hall does. I mean, you saw the technical ability of Lewis Hall get on Saturday, and you know he's not quick enough. He's not technical enough. He doesn't have the range of passing. But what he can do is he can make, like, if Livramento was bombing up that right hand side supporting Murphy in a game that is less onerous than Man City, and where you would expect to win, then he can basically drop in and make that back three, which then allows your midfield to push up further as well, and be slightly more creative through the midfield, rather than doing what Dan Burn did against Brentford, which was get caught out time and time again, trying to be Lewis Hall.
Mm-hmm. That's it. But I guess that's maybe the point that Wynn's making there, because what would happen is if somebody was injured, you play Trippier at right back and the other one at left back, whether that's Livramento or Burns, a bit of a last resort. But I still don't know why both Trippier and Kraft were missing from Saturday's squad. I don't know if that's something that's come out. But is it that virus that seems to keep doing the rounds? Is it?
Well, given that there was a video on the Instagram of him and Wissa together celebrating after we won, I'd be shocked if it was
Kraft,
a virus. Yeah. Because, going into that changing room and taking that photograph is only going to get the rest of our team ill, well, just in time.
All had it.
Aye, to be fair.
But Trippier's been doing talkings with Stuart Pearce and giving out awards at the foundation in the last week, so it was quite surprising to see him not in the squad. But also with Kieran Trippier, I think there's been glimpses this season. I thought he played quite well in the early part of the season, whereby you see the old version of him. I think he was outstanding in the period leading up to and including the League Cup final last season when he came in when Hull got injured. And he's been a tremendous player throughout his time at Newcastle. But he's 35 years old. And we probably need to be looking at replacing him this summer. And that is going to be hard, man. Both for what he brings to the squad and for the versatility at fullback. And Connor's just saying Trips has a hamstring injury and Kraft an ankle injury. And hamstrings can be tricky when you're 35. I know, I'm almost 35 myself.
You don't look it, mate. You don't look it.
Everyone says that, yeah. Hang on. I'm just looking if someone's putting a bet on in the comments, so let me get in a bit of this.
Is it a £4 bet?
No. 500 bet on that.
Oh, that's too much. That's it. Not between friends, guys. Not between friends.
Well,
there's a cost of living crisis.
Well, you don't know people's circumstances. Can't at a channel put your money where your mouth is. I think it's the bet that Bolty's saying that he'll be sacked by Christmas. I'm guessing he's talking about Eddie Howe there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry, anyone. But yeah, there's 500 quid. There's a monkey on the line, Hutch.
Yeah, but Borky said never bet on managers, lol. So maybe a £4 bet.
Never bet on managers or the early kickoff. But well, you know what I mean. Hey, it's not for me to say that. Perhaps I want to go through with that, but I mean, I don't think. I think what we concluded now was that Eddie Howe, both based on what he's achieved at Newcastle and in terms of the best way to do things when you're going through a transition, you give him the season, don't you?
Well, I mean, that's what we were saying. Yeah, last week we were giving the season, provided, of course, it doesn't completely collapse. But by looking at what happened yesterday, I mean, it's going to take another epic injury crisis for that to be the case. So, touch words, Tina 1 Hall are fine. and we'll be fine for the rest of the season, and we can kick on and look on up. Move on up.
Hey, it's the only way to be, isn't it? So, Hutch, coming in towards the end, just a couple of things, right? I think this one's quite interesting for me.
Our Manchester City team.
Pretty much. So we've been doing this, right? So just saying, where would we put the teams in the Premier League if we sorted them out in sort of order of size? And we've done the teams we've played on the weekend so far. I've got the old Man City badge here. Sorry about that. Now, I'm just going to be sensible here, Hutch. They're up here somewhere, right? Question for you is, got worldwide there for like worldwide institutions, clubs that have got millions of fans worldwide. Everybody knows who they are. You know, they make the big bucks. Are Man City one of those?
I mean,
as I say,
they are, but they're also. It's a bit of a weird one, right, with them and to a degree with Chelsea, because they basically came out of nowhere, didn't they? Like Chelsea, maybe less so, because they always argue that they won a cup in the year just before Abramovich bought them, but they weren't really big clubs until someone basically injected a rocket up their backsides with unlimited financial cash.
Football didn't start with the Premier League. Man City had more trophies, more league titles than Chelsea before the Premier League era. They've always had a massive supporter base. They've always pulled in good crowds when they were at Main Road before they moved to the Etihad. It's just that their success levels has increased exponentially since oil money came in, and since how many times they won the Premier League now? It's about 10, is it?
Yeah.
They've won the Champions League. God knows how many League Cups, a few FA Cups, and that's really boosted them. But do they have the worldwide profile of not wanting to go ahead and spoil things of a Man United or a Liverpool? I'm not sure, Hutch, between these two, so I'm going to leave it up to you.
I mean, they have the worldwide profile in the sense that they've got fans pretty much on every continent. A lot of their fans now, a lot of their stadium seems to be like it's the one thing I think that Newcastle fans fear, in the sense that it is basically a tourist spot. More than sometimes it does. Like, I mean, we've been there. I've been there 3 times in recent seasons. And the number of people that you basically run into buying half and half Premier League scarves is unreal. And now I know that you're going to...
You get half and half scarves as well?
For Champions League games. How many times have we played Barcelona in recent seasons? I mean, we've played Benfica twice in the last 15 years.
Hold on while I get a pen. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, get your point. Are you putting them... Seeing that, they get all these tourists, would that not say they are towards the worldwide institution?
I mean, in terms of their level and their support, yeah, they are. But like I say, if you remove that, but then it's the same with everyone, isn't it? It's the same with everyone, because Manchester United are slipping, or they were.
This is like
in terms of their
like interviewing some Tory cabinet minister on Newsnight. If the right gentleman could just answer the bloody question, are they worldwide or are they just merely massive?
Just stick them in worldwide and be done with it.
Yeah, right, okay. I'm good with that. See, painless, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Then, what we'll do as well is we'll revisit that when we come back to play them again later in the season. And, we might decide, hopefully Simon will be on by then or somebody else, and we might decide to relegate them. I'm old enough to remember when they got relegated in real life. But
To be fair, if these 115 charges ever come off them, the Premier League might decide to relegate them, so therefore it won't be our issue anymore.
That is true, but I can't see that happening anytime soon.
No, they're gonna.
Things have gone. So, okay, that's it then. I'd say for this week. Apart from that thing I've forgotten about, which we'll pick up when we're off the air. Thanks, Hutch, for discussing this. I'll see if I can get some cheeky little live recordings from the Dick next week, and we can spice up a little bit of a look back at Everton and Marseille, of course. And then we'll have a look forward to the next week of unbridled success. But for now, I'm quite happy, we've turned over Man City. So we'll just take the positives from that and move into another positive week. For everyone listening, just remember to hit those likes and subscribes. Stick around because someone's on at 9 o'clock. It might be the 90s mags, or I think it is the 90s mags, but I'm sure whoever it is will be almost 70% as entertaining as us. But in the meantime, thanks for your time, and see you next week.
Thanks, guys. See you later, mate.
Good hilarity and opinion with Jamie, Simon and Hutch. The Newcastle Comparison, live weekly on NUFC Talk Radio, on YouTube and in all